Okay, friends, when we do this right here, talking about immunosuppressants, I'm going to switch back and forth between this page and the next page. Why? Because you have this fantastic diagram right here that's going to make a lot more sense as we talk about everything. So we're going to start actually with these two suckers right here, Cyclosporine and Tacrolimus, okay? Now, I want you to note something. It's not just cyclosporine by itself. It's cyclosporine plus cyclophilin. How can you remember that? Well, phila comes from Greek and meaning, friend of or whatever. Kind of like Philadelphia as brotherly love. Phila, always good, always a friend of. Phobia, never a friend of. Arachnophobia, for example, fear of spiders. Okay. You can also remember this by pedophilia, and pedophiles love kids. Pediatrics, kids. That should stick in your mind because that was a shocking thing to use as an example, maybe. But whatever. Anyway, cyclosporine, tacrolimus, and sirolimus, also known as rapamycin. Why are all these things connected? Well, because they're so similar. Okay? So, cyclosporine and tacrolimus, they both end up stopping the transcription of interleukin 2. Look. They're both calcineurin inhibitors. They both end up stopping the transcription of interleukin 2. Okay. But you'll notice that cyclosporine works with cyclophilin. Tacrolimus is also part of this group, but you'll notice that it's with sirolimus here. Why? Because it works with FKBP. Now everyone has their way of remembering that. I remember this because it's the initials of me and my brother. However, just because they work with the same protein, they don't do the same thing. In fact, they don't at all. Look, calcineurin works with mTOR. And in fact, mTOR gets its name because it's the mitochondrial target of rapamycin. Okay. So, what do we need to know? Super nephrotoxic, both of these. Cyclosporine and tacrolimus are beyond nephrotoxic. However, cyclosporine has the added benefit of having gingival hyperplasia. Well, how can you remember that? Well, gingival hyperplasia, when you look at someone's gums, the gum lines, the gums will be gigantic and ball-like. It'll be all puffed out. It'll look like a bunch of giant spheres. Like circles. Cyclos. Not so tough. Tacrolimus doesn't have that same problem. You don't have gingival hyperplasia. You don't have hirsutism. Okay. However, what's the advantage of sirolimus? Well, sirolimus, it stops the response of interleukin 2. So it doesn't stop the interleukin 2 receptor, but once interleukin 2 binds, it stops its down signal thing by inhibiting mTOR. Okay, so what's the advantage of sirolimus? Well, it's not nephrotoxic, but you'll start seeing something here. A lot of things that mess up with interleukin 2 and everything downstream from it, you're going to start seeing pancytopenia. Look at this. Sirolimus, pancytopenia. Not nephrotoxic, so that is an advantage compared to tacrolimus and cyclosporine. Okay, and you also see in drug-eluting stents, which is pretty cool. But whatever. Let's keep looking down. Let's look at azathioprine and 6-mercaptopurine. And I always think of these things as the same thing. Like, they're not the same thing. Like, they're obviously not. One's a precursor, the other one isn't. But it's important to always group these things in the same, box in my mind. And you'll notice that azathioprine, mercaptopurine, this thing is going to affect lymphocyte proliferation going to cause pancytopenia. Okay. Basiliximab blocks the interleukin-2 receptor. Boom. How can you remember that it's interleukin-2? Because in Harry Potter, the basilisk was in Harry Potter too. So it's interleukin-2. Mycophenolate mofetil. Well, it's another thing that's kind of similar to 6-mercaptopurine and azathioprine in the sense that you mess up your metabolism and your purine nucleotides. So these are their own little thing. They live in their own little world. This lives in its own little world. And these suckers here live in their own little world. However, pancytopenia, pancytopenia, pancytopenia. Okay. Now you can start thinking about why these things would cause pancytopenia. Why would sirolimus cause pancytopenia? Why would these things that stop the production of DNA cause pancytopenia? Well, this is probably the most immediate answer in your mind. Well, if you can't make DNA, you can't make cells, and you're going to have pancytopenia. That's one way to think about it. Okay. The last thing is glucocorticoids here. So, glucocorticoids inhibit NF-kappa B. Okay, stops the transcription, induces T-cell apoptosis. But that's not really what people care about when they're going to ask you questions about using glucocorticoids. The boards love to test you on the effects, specifically the side effects of glucocorticoids. Yeah, like anything else, they can kind of point to an arrow and say, oh, what's happening here? Or, oh, what's happening here? Whatever, okay? That's why it's important to kind of know this. But what they love with glucocorticoids, it's talking about demarginations of white blood cells, adrenal insufficiency. If you stop immediately, all of a sudden they're gonna be taking some immunosuppressive medication, or they'll be taking whatever, a bunch of glucocorticoids, and they just stop and their blood pressure just shoots down to nothing, okay? Bam. Osteoporosis, dose-dependent, hypoglycemia, peptic ulcers, avascular necrosis of the femoral head. All these things you have to know. Psychosis also, it's not as common, but it happened to my girlfriend, so that's how I know it. So the cool things here is understanding the fun little interplay between cyclosporine, cyclophilin, gingival hyperplasia, tacrolimus and sirolimus all working with FKBP. However, sirolimus, it's not really a calcineurin inhibitor. It's an mTOR inhibitor, the mitochondrial target of rapamycin. Whoa, which is sirolimus, so you can't forget it. Look at that. Basiliximab, the basilisk in Harry Potter 2, stops the interleukin 2. Azathioprine and 6-mercaptopurine, of course, always together. Mycophenolate and azathioprine plus 6-mercaptopurine stop purine synthesis. And glucocorticoid with NF-kappa B. Don't forget this entire litany of side effects. Don't forget pancytopenia either. They love it.